Greetings from the far side of the galaxy. I'm Fuuri, your host with the most, here to tell you a story about titties. And these titties in particular seem to be a fan favorite. Hi, Future Fuuri here. My Elden Ring video kinda popped off, mega big thanks, so this video is definitely gonna get some spillover. To hopefully not scare those new subscribers away, here's a quick explanation on what we're doing. The name of the game is Tokyo Afterschool Summoners, but that's wordy, so we just call it Housamo. Housamo is a... what? No, get that out of here. What did I say about scaring the new subscribers? Housamo is a perfectly normal mobile game that uses characters from myths and stuff, so all we do here is go over their inspirations. It's really fun. If you enjoy mythology, folklore, and just learning cool stuff, I'd suggest you stay around. With that being said, back to you, my past self. The name of this series is Housamo Heroes, where I walk you through everything you need to know about a certain transient. Be sure to like and subscribe. Maybe check out this video I did over Melozin or my Elden Ring top 5. It's your choice. You know it's also your choice? Whichever Housamo hero I cover next, just leave which one you want in the comments. Well, slight lie, you actually get to decide the next Housamo hero because next week's has already been decided. Seth will be our next Housamo hero, but for now we have someone else. Today's Housamo hero is the Dark Knight, the Super Sentai Santa from Shinjuku's Santa School. That's right, today we're talking about Krampus. Spoiler warnings for the new champion of Christmas and the Jiangxi Night event. To start, Krampus is from the world of European folklore Tir na Nog like Melozin. He's the third year at Tokyo's Santa School in Shinjuku studying to be a Dark Santa. His rule and role are unknown, but his sacred artifact are a pair of metal claws. Their specific effect is kinda vague, but we do know they inflict a severe amount of fear on their target. They also produce the sound of a tolling church bell for reasons, I guess. I don't really know why. Aesthetic, maybe? Regardless, his artifact suits him very well since he wants to be a Dark Santa. To make a long explanation short, a Dark Santa is like a Christmas boogeyman who punishes the naughty children. We actually know extremely little about Krampus's past. We don't even know why he ended up in Tokyo, just that his parents were also Dark Santas, which is why he chose the profession. I suppose he's very lucky that Tokyo has its own Santa School with an entire Dark Santa course. At Santa School, he rose to the top of his class and joined the theater club, which, yeah, he is totally a theater kid. Despite appearances, Krampus is actually a huge nerd, yet to cope with his job as a Dark Santa, Krampus made a persona. No, not that kind, you fucking weebs, the acting kind. His persona is that of a devilish fiend who derives sadistic pleasure in the justice they exact. I'll get more into the persona later since it's actually really important to the event. Since we're done with his past, let's take a look at Krampus's inspirations. Starting with his name and, well, most of everything, Krampus is based on the mythical figure Krampus. The folklore Krampus originates from the European Alps. He's possibly pre-Christian, possibly not. Historians are unsure. Traditionally, he was a partner to Saint Nick who, rather than giving good children sweets and candy, birched children undeserving of the saint's love. Quick side note, birching refers to the act of thwacking or spanking someone on the butt, back, or shoulders with birch rods. So remember kids, if you're naughty, Krampus might give you a spanking. And that's enough towing the line for this video. I like my channel not being deleted, thank you very much. The more interesting piece of inspiration actually comes from his charge skill. Bells of Certain Punishment, Der Wild Man. It's a reference to the Wild Man, who's less of a specific character or species and more of a character archetype. The archetype is often a literal wild man from the untamed wilderness with a rough and uncouth appearance. Wild men are exceedingly popular, so the interpretations of them varied with the ages. Sometimes becoming a wild man is a divine punishment like God did to King Nebuchadnezzar or the king in the madness of King Sweeney. Sometimes the wild man takes the form of an ancient forest spirit that will bargain knowledge for his freedom if he's ever captured. Other times, there is some sort of savage mystery found on the edges of civilization. That last one might be the most accurate since some think the wild man was born from a misunderstood description of an ape. We can sort of see the inspiration of the wild man in Krampus's appearance. His rough and wild visage is lifted almost verbatim from the folkloric wild men. The other half of Krampus's inspirations comes from, well, Krampus. They both share the same role of being the anti-Santa that punishes naughty kids. And the tolling bells that follow behind Krampus seem to be a reference to church bells rang during the holidays. One detail I really love is that Krampus's battle pose has him sticking his tongue out, as Krampus was often portrayed in folklore. Oh, and one last thing, his summon day of December 5th falls on the same date as Krampusnacht, the night Krampus is supposed to be roaming the streets doling out punishment to naughty kids. I still don't get why Krampus's artifact are a pair of claws when he's supposed to birch naughty children. It honestly makes more sense for him to have Tomte's artifact than claws for some reason. Seeing as I don't have much more to talk about here, why don't we move on to the summary? Krampus was first introduced way back in the far-off year of 2018 with the new Champion of Christmas event. It begins with Maria and Ryota being chased through the Lake Kabukicho streets when a mysterious hero rescues them. Back at Shinjuku the next day, Ryota is telling his friends about it when the conversation changes pace. Shinjuku Academy is partnering with the Santa School for the Christmas ceremony, and since Ryota and Shiro are helping out, they invite the player to come along. Since they're not part of the prep team, the player ends up loitering around the Santa School campus when they run into Krampus, who runs away. The player explains the encounter to Ryota, Shiro, and Yule, who realizes it's his roommate, Krampus. Since Ryota insists on thanking him, Yule leads them to his dorm where they catch Krampus in the act. What? No, he's not choking the chicken, you perverts, he's just watching Power Rangers. He ends up attacking them to try and preserve his dignity, but calms back down for proper introductions. Stuff happens, Krampus ends up gushing about Super Sentai before they explain what a Dark Santa is. And yet, Krampus explains how he's only acting the part of a sadistic Dark Santa. He doesn't really vibe with the job, to be honest. He wants to be a hero, to make some friends, so Ryota decides to help him do that, thus the event's main plot begins. The next scene opens with Hati totally not stalking Gabriel, and the summoners also at Taikanyama. They're here so Krampus can get some advice from Gabriel on how to be more friendly, which doesn't work out too well. She tells him to smile, but the smile could use some work. Hati, being himself, was watching all of this from the bushes. After seeing Gabriel touch Krampus's tail, he convinces himself they're dating and runs off to sulk. He runs into some intruders, so he does his duty as a missionary and takes the battle, but he gets his shit kicked in and Krampus saves him. They explain to Hati they're not dating before moving on. Thank God. The next place they go is Ikebukuro to watch a match in the Coliseum. They arrive just in time to see Taurus Mask work the crowds and even fight him for themselves. It turns out Taurus is also a part of the celebration and is in need of an extra hand, which he finds in Krampus. During this, Krampus begins to feel torn between his two selves, the one that wants to be a hero and the one that wants to be a Dark Santa. This ends up getting to Krampus and he blows up at a few students mocking him. He ends up running off to clear his head, only for Black Dead and Taurus Mask to show up and help him. Black Dead tells him to figure out what it means to be a Dark Santa and a hero as we move on to the final act. The player and Krampus, the Obsidian Raptor and the Summoner begin their exhibition match. They wrestle through the ranks until they reach the final boss, Taurus Mask and Black Dead himself. Krampus gives his answer that he's not in contradiction, as being a Black Santa was just one part of his whole self. The event ends with Krampus thanking everyone for their help as gifts are exchanged and the Santas take off in their sled. All in all, it was an okay event. There's nothing particularly bad about it, but I expected more from a character as popular as Krampus. I like the conflict about Krampus's sense of self and that it used minor characters that don't get much screen time. However, the event was relatively standard with no real surprises in the story. The new Champion of Christmas event has been translated into English, so go ahead and watch it and tell me your thoughts. You know, I think I liked Krampus more in the Jiangxi Night event despite only being a side character in that. And you all know how the saying goes, I'll get to the Jiangxi Night event when we get to his units, which is right now. Krampus's 3 and 4 stars are freakishly similar, to be honest, even down to the skills and skill evolution. The only difference is that his 3 star is wood and his 4 star is nether. To begin, the 3 and 4 star's first skill gives him 70% proc for concentration at phase start and reduces damage from thrust attacks. Don't like the proc, but concentration is really damn good, so it gets a pass. Next up is Defender of Justice, which gives Ardor to allies next to him and a CP boost at 57% proc, so it's a waste of moving. Next up is the Cursed, which has a 50% chance of inflicting curse on hit, which is really bad. Finally, the Misfortune has a huge CP reduction to hit enemies and gives them a damage bonus against curse. While its curse effect sucks, its CP reduction is actually really good and the skill only gets better with its skill evolution. The Misfortune Plus is the same, but also gives him an 80% chance of inflicting Stigma. It's the most random addition I've ever seen, but fuck it, Stigma is a good status effect. Now we have his limited Halloween unit. It's a Firebow type 5-star taken from the time Krampus dressed up as Yama, the Judge of Hell. Considering Yama's job was to judge sinners, it makes Krampus the perfect fit since his job is to judge naughty children. His first skill is on appearance, giving him an attack up at 100% and a defense up at 90%, which is good. Next, he nullifies buffs 60% of the time when he attacks and removes buffs 50% of the time after he attacks. A very, very weird skill. It's like they couldn't settle for one at 100% proc, so they made two with 50. His third skill applies limit at phase start at 90% proc and resists 7 statuses, so it's a good skill. And finally, on turns by 5, he applies Stigma to every enemy, Blessing to every ally, and does double damage to enemies with Stigma. Honestly, it's a crazy good skill that makes him one of the best damage dealers in the game. His 5-star also has a skill evo just to make him that much better. It's for his third skill, keeping the limit and status resist while removing all debuffs on himself and spreading all buffs at 90%. The fact that it also gives him a damage boost to nullify buffs is icing on the cake. His 3 and 4-star were honestly above average for the time they came out, but nowadays they're just mediocre. While they get a damage boost from Curse, he's honestly better at inflicting Stigma. Thankfully, a lot of units use Curse, so put him on a team with Boogeyman, Suzuka, Daikoku, Seth, and Vari or Chernobog and you'll do fine. His 5-star Hoochie Mama, it's good. Its damage and ability to spread buffs is fucking insane. I usually pair him with Onsen Minayaki since they work so well together. Now that we're done with his units, let's wind down the video by looking at his relationship chart. No one likes Krampus, ouch, but he does like Ryota and Tomte. And Yul dislikes Krampus, but that's just because Krampus is a wee bit terrifying. And Krampus himself dislikes no one. All in all, Krampus got treated better than most. His first event perhaps isn't the best, but I liked his appearance in Jiangxi Nights and all of his units are above par. And so I gotta give this Wild Man Fuuri's official seal of approval. Do be sure to like and subscribe and tune in next time for when I talk about Seth. And as always, this is Fuuri signing out.